The aircraft losses at Stalingrad were terrible, just terrible. An average Air Force regiment might be at the front for a week and then cease to exist. That gives you some idea how bad our losses were. And the reasons? Well, first and foremost, the enormous intensity and importance of the actual struggle itself. Ultimately, it was a question of life or death for our country and people. On the other hand, everything was thrown into it like into a furnace. Whether a regiment was ready or not, a hole in the line had to be filled. So pilots like me made up 100 regiments consisting entirely of sergeants. I was a sergeant, you understand. 100 regiments of sergeants were given crash training just before the war. 80% of them were at Stalingrad. One fine day, just after we had finished the summer course at the pilot training camp in the Urals near Perm, they drew up all graduated pilots in ranks and gave a command. All those with names beginning with the letters A to K were to turn right and march quickly back to the barracks. And those beginning with L to Z had to turn left and quick march to the quartermaster's stores, and from there immediately go and join the infantry troops at Stalingrad. Thus it was that they sent trained pilots off to join the infantry at Stalingrad. And those pilots whose names began with the letters A to K, with me among them because my name is Afinoginov, flew to the front. So I flew to the front with a grand total of just 3 hours 40 minutes training in all.
And what of the millions of Soviet citizens away from the front line? As propaganda fixes every eye on the struggle for Stalingrad, they respond with whatever they can give. Their jewelry, their money, anything to help preserve the lives of husbands, brothers and sons trapped in the inferno. They are all part of a monumental national effort to save Stalingrad. And at the heart of the Soviet crusade, hidden from Hitler's gaze, one of the most astonishing enterprises in the history of warfare. Machinery and manpower from the great industrial regions of the Western USSR have been snatched from the very jaws of Nazi invasion. Now, a vast migration east is underway, east beyond the Urals, where they plant explosives in the frozen ground and rebuild Soviet war production from scratch. They work fast through the grueling winter, but the motherland's need is desperate, and many plants must begin operating before they have a roof. By the end of the war, more than 2,000 new factories will have sprung up in Siberia. Heavy industrial plants producing weapons to sustain the Red Army at the front. But that army needs men. And so while Hitler still keeps men away from the front for vital factory work, legions of Soviet children must rise to aid their homeland in its hour of peril. Alongside their mothers at the lathes, they toil to complete the Siberian miracle, and the future of the Soviet Union depends on them all. On the quality of the war machines they produce, on the quantity of oil they extract, and on the barges they pilot to bring it all to the crisis point on the Volga, to Stalingrad. And Stalin, for once, does not squander their endeavors. The year's defeats have shocked him, and Marshal Zhukov finds his first counterattack proposals greeted with uncharacteristic caution.
So, what have you thought up? Stalin said as he came over to our map. What front is that? Vasilievsky reported back, it's a new front that needs to be opened in addition to the Don front, so that we can make a major thrust against the German grouping at Stalingrad. The left wing of our Stalingrad front will make a thrust towards Kalach to meet it. Stalin says, But have we got enough forces for such a big operation? Perhaps we should limit it to the thrust along the Don from north to south and south to north. We objected to Stalin that if we were to do this, the Germans would quickly deploy their mechanized troops from Stalingrad and parry our thrust. He said, we need to think about our plan and calculate our forces and resources. The main task now is to hold Stalingrad. And don't breathe a word to anyone about the plan.
Nothing must distract from the last-ditch battle still being waged inside Stalingrad. The city has become a global obsession, dominating the world's headlines. And now, more than ever, Stalin's prestige demands that it shall not fall. But there is another reason to plan in stealth. The Sixth Army must be kept fully occupied in Stalingrad while the Red Army gathers in the rear, planning its revenge. While the Soviet Union's distant allies beat paths of their own to the beleaguered city, British aid carried through the icy gauntlet of the Murmansk Run or across the Iranian border. And from the USA's Alaskan airfields, fighter aircraft fly into Siberia to aid a Red Army almost ready to launch its counterstrike. Artillery Chief Voronov coordinates planning along with General Vatutin, leading the Southwest Front, Rokossovsky commanding the Don Front, and Yeremenko attended as ever by his political shadow, Khrushchev. Their designs are overseen by Stalin's most trusted military advisors, Zhukov and Vasilevsky. And on the 19th of November, a huge artillery barrage by the Southwest Front pierces the frost, decimating ill-prepared Romanian forces in its path. This is Operation Uranus.